Welcome everyone. The topic of the week is Introduction to the 20 Principles by Hassan Al-Banna. I did this presentation based on a book by Ali Abdul Halim Mahmoud. It's called Sharh Usul Doplo, which means lectures on the 20 principles. So basically, why is an introduction to a topic important, right? Why don't we just go ahead to the 20 principles by Hassan Al-Banna? Basically, the purpose of me giving an introduction is so that it can help make you understand the importance of the 20 principles, so that when you get that knowledge, you'll know how to implement it, you'll know the importance of it. So that is sort of like the purpose of it. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you guys will all be interested to know the 20 principles, and it will help you to understand the topic in a more in-depth, yeah. So that is the purpose of the introduction. Or in other words, we call it muqaddima. Yeah. So let's move on. Oh, right. So there are going to be 4 subtopics. The first one, I'm going to talk about the disunity amongst ourselves, Muslims, and the fall of Islamic civilization. The second one, I'm going to talk about the solution to this destruction. The third one, I'm going to give a little bit of the history of reformation in Islam. And then the fourth one, we're going to talk about Hassan Al-Banna. Why is he so important in this process? Why is he so successful? And why is he so successful in reforming Islam, basically? So who here can tell me who is Hassan Al-Banna?
He is the founder of Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes, and what is Muslim Brotherhood?
Muslim Brotherhood is like Islamic branch, Islamic organization, which is located in Egypt, and they have like all branch all over the world.
Yes, and it's a revivalist organization, basically to sort of revive Islam. So basically he's the founder of Ikhwan al-Muslimin, or Muslim Brotherhood. And he lived in his lifetime, he experienced the downfall of Islamic civilization when he, at his teenage years. So, and then the 20 principles by him, basically, I know Nasir talked about the 10 testaments by him, what we should do. But what's different between that and this is that the 20 principles by Hassan Al-Banna is mostly about the proper teaching of Islam. And the purpose is to sort of unite Muslims together, because he can see that as one of the biggest problems that we're facing as the Muslim Ummah. So it's sort of 20 principles to help you understand Islam better, the proper teaching, the proper conduct. Some of the examples is that he would address in the 20 principles, how do we approach differences of opinion among scholars, right? Should we focus on things like, do women have to cover their feet when they pray, or is there other things that are more important? Should we how do we disagree with Shaykh? Do we get to decide what's right and what's wrong, who to follow? These kind of questions, all these problems that we have right now in the Muslim Ummah, he addressed that in the 20 principles. And it's a really a solid work. It really addresses all the issue and encompasses all the problems that we're having right now. So the introduction, I'm going to give a little bit of background knowledge, and the first thing that we're going to talk about is the disunity amongst ourselves and the fall of Islamic civilization. So it's really directly attached, directly linked with one another, why we're disunited, and how it affects the Islamic civilization. And so I would like to just talk about unity for a moment. I think for me personally, there's no unification between people that's better than the unification for Allah, because the reason why is that you can be united in other things for your faith, but you can't be united in faith for other things. I'll give you an example, right? Okay, so you have a group of people who are Muslims, and you both have passion for one thing, cooking, for example. So you can be united for cooking because for Allah, right? Because you're all Muslims. But if you cannot go the other way around, you cannot be a group of people who really loves debating, for example. Their passion is debating. So they're united because of that. but because of their love for debating, they want to be united for faith. Does this make sense? Yeah, does this make sense? Who doesn't understand the example that I just gave? It makes you don't understand. Okay. So like you and me, we're both Muslims, and we have passion for one thing. Like for example, tennis, right? We both like playing tennis, and we can both be like tennis buddies, right? We can play tennis together, and then we can do it for Allah. We can do it for our faith. We can do, I'm gonna be nice to you, you're gonna be nice to me, because Allah says that we have to be nice with one another, right? So that can work. But for example, we don't have any like we're both not Muslims. Like maybe one of us is Muslim, and then we're both friends because we both like tennis. Okay, this is good. But we cannot say like, oh, because we both like tennis, we can share the same faith. Does that make sense? Yes. Like it doesn't work the other way around. So that's why I think there is nothing that can unite two human beings more than the faith itself. Because with faith, you can be united for anything that follows the commands of faith, right? So you can be united for like because you like a particular movie, or like particular sports or hobbies and everything. So I think like that's what's so beautiful about being united for Islam, is that like that is like the most that you can be united with someone. Like yeah, anyway. So yeah, there is no unification better than unification for Allah. That's like the gist of what I'm trying to say. So there are two things, two main factors why Muslims right now are not really united. There's external factors, factors outside of the Islamic world, and then there's internal factors, factors from inside of the Islamic world. So we're gonna go to external factors first, because I think like
out of for the previous slide, right?
Yeah.
How do you relate the first point to the fall of Islamic civilization?
Oh, well, that's part of the 20 principles. To be honest. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So there's the external factors. Basically, how I would define external factors is any influence that are against the commands of Islam, and that could be anything that is written in the Quran that you're not allowed to do. So basically, yeah, that's like a bunch of nerds dancing. I wanted to take a picture of people clubbing, but end up having a picture. Okay, anyway, so any influence against the commands of Islam. So for those who want to bring down Islam, they want to bring down Muslims, they would want to attack the core thing that makes us come together in the first place, right? So they're not going to attack you physically, because they know that it's not because of your physical that you're together. It's not because like we're all beautiful, that's why we're all united. Like they know that's not the reason. If that's the reason, then they will make us all ugly, right? I don't know how they would do that, but they know that the reason why we're all united is because of our faith. So they don't attack us physically. They're not going to come and kill us or something. They attack us. They attack our faith. That's the thing that they're going to attack, because they want to disunite us. So they attack us from the inside, the core of what we believe. So it will be the things, and our faith, it will affect the things that we do in our daily lives. So they attack the things we watch on TV. They attack the things we listen to, the music industry right now, what they're producing. They attack what we feel, because indirectly, not indirectly, directly, what you watch and what you hear will affect your heart. So they will attack the heart indirectly, fill it up with corruption. And then the thing that I think a lot of us may overlook is that they attack the things we talk about every day. Because I don't know if we realize it, like for me at least, I don't think that we talk about Allah enough in our daily lives. Most of us, I don't know most of you, but me, for me, a lot of the times I would talk about myself, like, like I'm stressed, or someone did this to me, or I did this and this, I ate this and this. Like it's all about me. So like in a way we are in an era where it's about worshiping ourselves, and I will talk about that like in more detail later on. But I feel like in 24 hours, the amount of time that I talk about Allah is like, it doesn't look like I worship Allah. Like it should be more. It should be more. Like because we're all servants of Allah, and we should be worshiping Him. And if you worship about someone, like if you're in love with someone, you would all constantly talk about that person, right? So right now we want to be in love with Allah, and we want to worship Allah. So I think like definitely like we should talk more about not just, okay, when I talk about Allah, it doesn't have to be like Allah. Don't look at it in such a narrow way. Like you can talk about your studies, whatever that you're studying, whatever that you read on the newspaper, and then sort of relate that back to Allah. So it's like you won't ever run out of things to talk about, because whatever that happens in your daily lives, you can relate that back to Allah instead of relating back to yourself, just yourself. Like I'm so stressed and all that kind of stuff. And then even when you're stressed and you want to talk about being stressful, you can like relate that back to Allah, right? So I think that's also one of the things that they attack, whether we realize it or not. They don't want us to think about Islam. They don't want us to think about Allah. So yeah, they, in a way, it attacks the things that you talk about. Yeah. Okay, so that is external factors, which I think is not, it can be solved if we solve the internal factors, right? Factors from inside of the Islamic world. So I think one of the things that we lack as Muslims is that we lack passion towards our deen. Like that's something that I think we're lacking. That there's no like passion towards learning our deen, towards being really educated about Islam and what it teaches us. And then also second, we take the principles and the etiquettes of Islam lightly. We don't take it as seriously. Like we know about it, we studied it maybe, but we take it lightly. Like it's not that big of a deal. Like okay, great, 20 principles by Hassan Al-Banna, awesome, I'm gonna learn about it. But we don't like take it seriously. Like okay, I'm gonna learn about this and I'm going to implement it in my daily life. I'm going to change myself first, and like hopefully also change like we'll change together as an ummah. And so in result to that, we resort to other ways of lives. We resort to other principles, like the Western culture, because we think that that's somehow better than what Allah has given us. We think that that's better, and we think that that's more, like we fall prey into this materialistic world because we take the principles and etiquettes of Islam lightly. We don't take it as seriously. We don't think that it's important in your life, as important in your life. So that's the second. And then the third internal, this is not everything, it's because it's just an introduction. So like based on the book, like I'm presenting this based on the book. Anyway, the third one is Islamic government. That is a huge, huge, huge problem. Our government like kneels in front of the Western power. Where like our government doesn't like stand up for Islam, stand up for Muslims' rights. They're afraid of the Western power. They're allowing their enemies to have like ultimate control over them, and then at the end of the day it will crush us all back. Like yeah. And I think one of the reasons why it's like a vicious cycle. One of the reasons why we're so afraid of the Western power is because we're all not united. Like the Muslim countries are not like united against everything that is against Islam, right? So that's why we're so scared, because we feel like we're all alone. Like no one wants to stand up for Islam because no one else does. Like why should our country stand up for, Palestine or Syria? Like no other Muslim countries are standing up for them, right? Because we feel like we're alone, we're not united. And I think that's like a vicious cycle, because that's one of the most important internal factors that we have to deal with is our government. Okay, so I know in the external and internal factors, I talked about a little bit about us as human beings and how we sort of worship ourselves in a way based on the things that we talk about. Like look back for a moment and then think about the things that you talk about with your friends, with your parents, husband and wives. Yeah, like what do you guys talk about? So I'm gonna give a video by Ustaz Numan Alihan. It's a tafsir Surah An-Nas, and he talked a little bit about mankind. Okay, there's no volume.
Who is the biggest victim of shaitan? In the Quran, but a lot of bad people are mentioned. But after shaitan, what do you put it? You would put Fir'aun at...
Okay.
Who is the biggest victim of shaitan?
No, it's good.
In the Quran, but a lot of bad people are mentioned. But after shaitan, who would you put at number 2? Fir'aun. You would put Fir'aun at number 2. And I want you to note something about Fir'aun. And actually, before you know something about Fir'aun, I want you to note something about this surah. Remind yourself once again, what 3 names of Allah did we find? Rabbin Nas, Malikin Nas, Ilahin Nas. I'll tell you 3 things Allah says about Fir'aun. 1. فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. What did he say about himself? I am Rabb. The biggest waswasa of shaitan, what you're supposed to attribute to Allah, he attributed to himself. Rabb. Listen to another ayah from Fir'aun. أَلَيْسَ لِي مُلْكُ مِصْرَ, pertaining to Fir'aun rather. أَلَيْسَ لِي مُلْكُ مِصْرَ وَهَذِهِ الْأَنْهَارُ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِي. Don't I own the kingdom of Misr? Don't these rivers flow beneath, and only I am the king of Misr? What's he referring to himself as? Malik. That's what he's referring himself. So he mentioned himself as Rabb, then he mentioned himself as Malik. What's left? Ilah. Let's see if he committed this crime too. He turns to his chiefs and he says, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنَ يَا أَيُّهَا الْمَلَأْ مَا عَلِمْتُ لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرِي. My generals, listen up. I don't know of any other ilah for you other than myself. For Fir'aun, we find himself declaring 3 things for himself. Rububiyyah, Mulk, and Uluhiyyah. All 3 for himself. Rabb, Malik, Ilah. We find this sampling that Allah has given us in the Quran is very important. It shouldn't be overlooked. And it's not just for you and I to say, oh man, Fir'aun, la'anahullah, what a loser. But there's something here. That is what the waswasa of shaitan can lead to. What was the biggest problem of shaitan? Shaitan himself, what was his biggest problem? Arrogance. Arrogance. What is the biggest thing he can instill inside a human being? Arrogance. And what is the worst manifestation of arrogance? Fir'aun. But you don't have to reach Fir'aun to be worried that you're headed down the same road that leads to Fir'aun. Today we are not living in a time where people declare themselves gods over others. But we are living in times where people declare themselves gods over themselves. They declare themselves their own master. I am my own man. I am my own master. They declare themselves their own king. King of the house. King of my territory. King of my domain. They declare themselves their own ilah. Their own hawa, their own desires become their ilah. أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Did you see the one who takes his desires and turns them into his ilah? Even. We're living in times where we can each turn into mini Fir'aun without even realizing it. We don't have to have large castles and fight with messengers and be arrogant, outspoken against Allah Azza wa Jal. But that concept of ego that is crushed in the beginning of this surah by you openly saying, I need protection. I need Allah's protection. I'm coming into His obedience. There's a very powerful lesson in this. Very, very powerful lesson. Iblis himself recognizes the lordship of Allah but wants the human being to forget it. He himself said, you are the one who created, khalaqtani. Even when he was disobeying Allah, he gave him credit. Khalaqtani min nar. You created me from fire. Even then he acknowledged Tawheed himself. Even he himself. But he wants the human being to forget that tawheed. He wants the human being to become ungrateful. May Allah protect us from the waswasa of shaitan.
Okay. So, is there any comments about this video? Anyone wants to give any feedback? Okay.
I do want to comment.
Yes.
Just a sentence. Like, we need to realize that there is a shaitan everywhere. There is shaitan all around us. So we need to aware that he's the one who tried to put all the strategy to lead us astray.
Yeah. And also, like, I really like to follow news alternatives, is what you call it, on YouTube, and they will discuss about recent issues on, like, its YouTube channel, right? And it's really popular. And I can see that we are living in an era where we do put ourselves as God, because they would say things like, it's my life, I get to decide what's right and wrong for myself, like, I don't need a religion to tell me how I should live my life. And it sounds so right, like, it sounds intelligent and logical for those who don't understand the concept of religion. Like, why should I let a book to tell me, like, what I should do? Like, I don't want other people to tell me. Like, it's my life, my choice, my responsibility, my like, all the consequences come back, like, it's for me, right? Like, so I can see that it is, and sometimes I can be like that too. So I don't know about other people, but I think, yeah, we have to realize that that's one thing that is important in solving this problem. It's not about just me. It's about the whole ummah as well. And the thing is, it's not, this life is given to us by Allah as a responsibility for us to be the best human being that we can. So yeah, just always remember that it's not about yourself. It's not just about me. And yeah. So the next one is solution to this destruction. I think the easiest answer would be just to go back to Islam. Go back to Islam. Go back to learning what our deen teaches us. And I think it's very important, the 20 principles by Imam Hassan Al-Banna. He really talked about the proper ways of learning Islam, the proper ways of understanding Islam, the proper ways of being united again amongst Muslim. And I think if we really study the principle and implement it in our lives, learn from it, I think it's one of the ways that we can solve this problem of being disunited and being very, like, selfish, just thinking about ourselves and not thinking about the bigger picture. And we have to put Islam as our basis in everything that we do, from the moment we open our eyes in the morning till the day we die, right? So we can't possibly, like, start up a civilization that is based on justice, righteousness, good deeds, without putting Islam as the basis. Like, there is no other civilization in this world that is able to solve these problems of, injustice, these problems of poverty, to stand up for what's right and stand against what's wrong. There's no other civilization that is able to do that other than the Islamic civilization, other than putting Islam as the basis. Even a country as amazing as Canada, they still have poverty, they still have problems, they still have issues, right? And they are, like, one of the best countries in this world, and they're so, like, way more advanced than Malaysia, unfortunately, which claim to be an Islamic country. Wait, it doesn't claim. I don't know whether it claims to be an Islamic country or not. Maybe not. No. Justice, righteousness, good deeds. Okay, yeah, good deeds. So I think we have to realize that, because I know there are so many good things about Canada, and the things that are good about Canada are actually Islamic. Like, the things that we like they stand up for human rights, for animal rights. They eat, like, healthy food. They really support local farm, and organic, and so these are Islamic things. So don't think that, oh, it's the Western culture that we have to adapt. No, this is Islamic teachings, and unfortunately, like, we as Muslims don't follow it, but they followed it, and there is a history behind it, but it's okay. We won't go into that. But so yeah, don't think that. I know that right now it seems like the Western world is more advanced and more developed, but don't think for a moment it's because we follow Islam that we're so lacking behind. We don't follow Islam. Actually, I would consider Canada to be a more Islamic state, Islamic nation than Malaysia. So for a lot of reasons. And then there's this quote by, I don't remember who, but he said that he looked at the West and he saw Islam but no Muslims. He looked at the West and he saw Islam but no Muslims, and then he looked at the East, he saw Muslims but no Islam. So there's like a separation there, unfortunately. And I think there's this tendency for us to look up to other ways of life, other rules, other principles that are human made over what is written in the Quran, over what God has told you. Like, you would, like, sometimes you read something that God asked you to do, then there maybe, like, there's a tendency for you to be like, to question it. Like, well, Canada doesn't do it, but Canada is better than, like, Saudi Arabia, who does it, right? Who follows the Islamic law, like Sharia law, whatever. So I think definitely we have to educate ourselves about Islam, and like, put faith in Islam, that actually, if you learn the proper teaching of Islam, it can help solve everything, literally everything, that the problems that this world is facing, from poverty to wars to family problems. A lot of the family problems, even Canada, I don't remember the Canadian ministry, of family affairs or something, they put alcohol as the number one reason of all the issues that are happening in Canada. Social issues, like human issues, like in family, and like rape, and all the issues that Canadians are facing. They're not Muslims, so they're not biased, but they put alcohol as the reason why Canada is having so much problems. So even through that, even reading that, you can see the beauty of Islamic teaching. Islam doesn't even allow, like, alcohol, even if all the ingredients is halal. But if it turns into alcohol, if it turns into something that can impair your judgment, then it's haram. So through that, hopefully you can see the beauty of Islam. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Reformation in Islam, how people before Hassan Al-Banna tried to reform Islam. They tried to revive the real teachings of Islam, and why they failed. Primarily, one of the reasons why they failed is because they concentrate on one particular problem and then ignore other things. Like, maybe at that time they had a lot of problems with Aqidah, with the leader, with ignorance, with ruh, but they choose, like, only one aspect to focus on, and then hopefully the rest would come. Like, hopefully the rest would solve by itself by solving the main problems. Yeah.
Can you give, like, specific examples?
Yes, I'm going to. Yeah. So some of the examples that they focused on is Aqidah, Ibadah, Ruh. Like, okay, so for example, Aqidah, they just concentrate on the belief. Okay, wait. Aqidah comes from the word aqada, which means to hold tightly and make a knot, right? So, like, your heart accepts something without reservation, and you're firm about it. Like, you believe it in your heart. But just focusing on that and not focusing on actual action doesn't work. Does that make sense? Like, you can't just possibly focus just on the Aqidah and then ignore Ibadah, right? And ignore the Quran and the Sunnah. So it doesn't work that way. And same with other Other examples, some just focus on the ibadah, not the aqidah. And then, like all these things, and some just ignore the Quran and Sunnah. Some just focus on the Quran and the Sunnah, just doing everything, just following without really understanding why and without having proper faith. So you see how everything is interlinked. So you can't really separate these and try to solve just one particular thing without linking it with the other.
Can you give me any example of that?
Especially on row, I don't really understand.
Row is spirituality.
Like,
So you focus on the row and not the action. Yeah. Was
so
it?
that's like, you see that some of them, like, they just focus on Quran and Sunnah, right? Is there any example of that?
Oh, them particular, no. I don't have any
Oh, okay,
examples.
sure.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So that's one of the problems, right? And that's why it failed previously. And then and then came this one person called Hassan Al-Banna, right? So what about him? Like, why is he successful, sort of? It's because he in the 20 principles by him, he sort of because he experienced the downfall of Islam during his lifetime. He sees it in front of his eyes how it fell. He made these 20 principles, right? Based on all the problems that he can see. So it's really good. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it. I'm just introducing the topic. But it's really good, and he really deals with every single problem that I think we're facing right now. Like, so he's not just focusing on fiqh or just focusing on tawheed. He focuses on everything, and it's really good. You guys should be excited to learn about it. I don't know when.
We are excited.
Yeah. So I'm successful in so far. Hopefully, yeah. And it's really, I think, I was very impressed when I read it, basically. I read the 20 principles, and I was very impressed at how he really talked about everything. Okay, anyway, so he made this 10 rules. Wait, what was it? The 10 rules? Okay. It's sort of like a teaser to the 20 principles. It's not really 20 principles, but you have to have these qualities in you. It's sort of like qualities of a Muslim. He has so many. 10 testaments, 10 rules, 20 principles. He's been making lists his whole life. Anyway. So, yeah. So the 10 rules is like the 10 characteristics that we have to have. So understanding. We have to have like a deep understanding of Islam thoroughly, as a whole, with like validity. And then sincerity. We have to be sincere when we do something for the deen. Reformation. We have to reform ourselves. We have to keep on reforming ourselves and our family, our society. And then jihad. We have to perform like jihad at different levels, like not just one thing. Like, it's not just about going to war or going to school, but like everything from improving your personality to the way you talk to people that you don't really like, or anything that is an effort. Okay, wait.
So where's the reformation?
Okay, that's not here. Anyway, reforming, like changing yourself and your family. Always keep on. Yeah. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your wealth. And you sacrifice yourself with the religion, really. Obedience, you obey God. Oh, this is what's interesting. You obey God during time of ease and hardships, willingly or being forced. Does that make sense? Like, even when you feel like, oh, I don't want to pray, but you force yourself, or you ask someone to force you or something. Even when you don't, the thing about obedience is that you don't just obey when you feel like you want to. Like, I'm gonna obey this, only when I'm willing to do it. I'm going to pray only when I feel like it. I'm going to fast only when I feel like it. It doesn't work that way. You have to obey God even when you don't want to do it, even when someone else has to force you, or you force yourself. That's even better. To obey God and His prophets, because it's not like maybe our iman is not at the high, like at a high level all the time. So sometimes you have to force yourself. Tabat is tabat. Tabat is standing firm. So you stand firm on this deen. You stand firm on your faith. Even at the age of Islam's downfall, which is right now, right? Islam's downfall. So it's sort of rising secretly, but I don't know. But in the eyes of the majority, it's Islam's downfall, right? Like they are all saying God is dead in the West.
Who said that?
Huh?
Who said that?
People. So I think you still stand firm. Even when you're the only Muslim in the whole country, you stand firm on the deen. Tajarrud is preventing yourself from believing all these ideologies that are against Islam, that contradicts the teachings of Islam, or any like sort of like, okay, never mind. Yeah, so preventing yourself from any ideology, like I can think of LGBTQ. It's LGBTQ now.
And it's getting longer.
It's getting longer.
Where's Q?
Yeah.
Right?
Queer.
No,
there's
it's
a-
different.
Questioning thing.
And then
Yeah, it's
T
getting longer.
is the most interesting. The extra T is for two spirit. So you're both male and female.
Okay, we continue.
Transsexual is when you change your gender. So you have one gender.
LGBTQ. Lesbian, gay, bisexual,
Oh, there's a
transsexual.
double
LGBTQ.
and I.
There's an I now.
Intersex.
Intersex.
What is that?
Yang hunsa dengan tu. But that's okay. It's not
Anyway.
Let's proceed. Let's
Yeah,
proceed.
so there's like so many ideologies. There's Scientology,
Marxist.
but the most popular in Canada is, of course, atheism, right? Everyone knows.
Socialist. Socialist.
Just there's a lot of them here.
No, I think no. Mormons. Okay. Anyway, so Tajarrud is
So tajarrud, the word tajarrud means preventing. Is that the only, or and then you elaborate to preventing yourself from
okay.
being
Tajarrud is to cleanse yourself
cleanse yourself. So that's the meaning of
Yeah.
tajarrud.
from any sort of attachment other than attachment towards God, and from
Okay.
any behavior that reflects on the teachings of anything other than the teaching of Islam, teaching of Allah. So yeah, so in a way, it's not just about preventing yourself from any ideologies. In a way, attaching yourself with the human being is also an ideology. Like they're giving us this idea that you're incomplete without your other half, and like this ideology of like falling in love and all that stuff. Anyway, so just basically to hold tight to the teaching of Islam. Right?
How about democracy?
As long as it doesn't contradict. I don't think democracy. I don't know. Is democracy against Islam?
I'm really sure.
I don't know, but secularism is. Yes. Oh, I forgot. Secularism is like one of the most popular. This one is more popular.
By
Ideology.
translation, it's against Islam because it's a rule by the people. People are not meant to rule.
One another.
I mean, rule is exclusive for Allah.
Makcik kena say, not pakcik.
Okay. So yeah,
Who are?
but
Pakcik cannot say.
yeah. So tajarrud, yeah, preventing yourself, and then ninth is ukhwa, meaning companionship. I think this is right here is the cure to help solve the problems of disunity amongst ourselves. Just building ukhwa, and that is like ukhwa is the basis of this tarbiyah and all these da'wah. The most important thing that we have to have is ukhwa, right? If you don't have ukhwa, don't even dream of like having anything else. It's built on ukhwa. Everything is built on ukhwa. The Islamic nation is built on ukhwa. So the ummah is built on ukhwa. That is like so important, and I think the 20 principles by Hassan Al-Banna really put a lot of emphasis on unity. Like really, he really what do you call it? Hit the nail on the something. Head. He really hit the nail on the head on ukhuwah. And then last one is tika. Tika.
Fiqh.
Tika.
Huda, you say that ukhuwah is the most important thing, right? So why should it become number one?
I don't know. I don't know why it's not number one. I don't think it's like
Is it
on
because-
in the order of
is
the
it because,
most
like,
important to
in
the
order to,
least
like,
important.
In my opinion, right? Is it like if in order to in order to have like a very good ukhuwah, right? You need all those prerequisites. Is it? I'm not sure.
I would agree with that.
You would agree?
I would agree that you have to understand Islam first, and then you have to have sincerity, and then you start reforming yourself first before you go outside, and then jihad and sacrifice. And
Yeah.
then when you realize the importance of ukhuwah, then you can go big.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. Thank you.
Wouldn't obedience come right after sincerity?
So let us not argue with
Yeah, he arranged it. That's
Yeah,
the
you mean
point.
in order
number 10 doesn't mean less important than
Okay.
one, right?
Okay, it's okay. There's no stupid questions. So okay, the last one is tika. Trust. It means trust. Trust towards a leadership that is in the scope of Islam. So when
Trust towards leadership.
that is in the scope of Islam. So there's a quote here. There is no obedience to those who are disobedient
Thank you.
towards Allah. So if a government comes up and say, stop praying or stop fasting, stop being a Muslim, you don't obey them just because they're the leader. Just because there's no obedience to those who are disobedient towards Allah. So as long as the law allows us to be good Muslims, which I think it does, like the Canadian law allows us to be good Muslims, alhamdulillah, there's a religious freedom here. We have to follow the law of the country, definitely. We can't like go against it.
But they are disobedient towards Allah because they allow LG.
No, like
No, if I may interrupt.
yeah, sure.
لا طاعة لغير لا طاعة لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية خالق. So you can't obey something that is against that a person says that is against what the Creator has said. So here it's changed a bit into if the person is against the Creator, but it really isn't because Allah does allow us to migrate to other countries. For example, it is there that Rasulullah has said if you want to move for trade or for education and so on, so they know that you can live in countries of non-Muslims.
Yeah.
If the person tells you to do a ma'asiyah against the Creator, then you are not to be obedient.
Oh my God, you're recording? Sorry.
Exactly. Wrong.
You can record the presentation without my face. What was it? Jannah. LGBTQ. The government doesn't force us to believe in it. Like the government doesn't ask us to like be all like be
Yeah,
gay.
but they allow.
Like,
It's fine.
all of you have to be gays or transsexual or like. So it's like I don't see it as a problem. It's just that there's religious freedom. So like you can do whatever you want basically. So whatever. Okay. So yeah, that's the last one. We have to trust them.
So this stands for what?
The characteristics in a
For the unit there.
in a Muslim. Yeah.
Oh.
Muslim as a
Yeah.
This is before going to the 20 principles, right?
Yeah. This is before, sort of like a introduction. Okay. So that is all for today. Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions, concerns, comments?
Are you guys finished?
Yes.
Take your time.
So I have one question.
I can never answer your question.
Boleh tanya lagi.
Boleh tanya lagi? Boleh tanya
So
lagi?
why should we concern about this resolution?
Why should we be concerned?
Yes.
About what?
About this kind of
About these 20 principles.
why? Because
Or
they
the
have a lot of
Arabic
things,
term for it that he was using was usul ashrin, which
Oh.
Because sorry.
20 principles. They just want to sound
I
smarter,
feel-
I think.
Just
I feel kind of sad because I thought that's what I've been doing to tell you the importance of.
Yes, I
mean-
just want to
summarize.
Summarize it.
So
It's
that
not that
you
he
make
doesn't
a point.
understand. He just wants you to summarize it.
Want you to
Okay.
summarize it.
yes, yes.
Okay, to summarize, I think we have to have that realization that like there's a big problem that is occurring in the Islamic world. We have to realize that there is a problem for us to want to try to solve it, right? So I think your question is, why is it important? It's important to solve the problems that are happening in Islam and to bring back the real Islam to this world. And I think it's I know a lot of people don't care about what's happening. They don't care that Islam is not coming back. They're Muslims, but it's not really, they don't see it, they don't view it as important to help solve the problem. So I think it's sort of like our job as those who do realize this problem to talk with them and to share with them this knowledge. And honestly, I think if everyone in this world tries to really understand Islam, try to really like openly, faithfully, like be open-minded and try to really learn this deen, I don't think anyone can hate it. Is it correct for me to say that? Like, I don't think anyone would be like, oh my god, what an awful ideology, what an awful religion. Like, if you really study it, if you really learn it with full-heartedly, with no bias, no preconceptions, I think everyone would fall in love with it. I have so much faith in it that I think everyone would fall in love with it. It's just that there's so many obstacles right now, external factors, internal factors, that are preventing people from knowing the real Islam and from falling in love with Islam. But really, just if we try to improve ourselves and spread the message of Islam, I think a lot of people would fall in love with it, and they would want to bring back the real Islam. Yeah.
You mentioned about external factor and internal factor.
Yeah.
And for the external factor, you mentioned about all this influence that they laid in front of us. And you mentioned a couple of times about the thing that we think, like the thing that we think on daily basis that make into our conversation and all this. I'm just wondering if you would agree that what really happened is they changed our thinking and our thoughts, not just the way when you think differently, that makes the whole, I don't know, what is your opinion on that?
I think I agree with you. Yeah, definitely. Basically, they attack our mentality on things. They don't want us, when we study about science, we think of Allah. They don't want that. Like, they want us to be like detached everything from Allah. So they start off with this secularism, right? Separation of state and church, right? So like they want to detach politics from God and education from God, and so that our whole mentality is not related towards God, because like literally everything that you can see in front of you, everything that you can talk about, like everything that's happening, you can relate it back to Allah, right? If for example you're talking about the crime rates rising, right, you can discuss about like it's because we don't follow what is written in the Quran, we don't follow the rulings, and why do people have so much problems, like heart problems, depression especially, it's a big problem. Even in a developed country like Canada, like you wouldn't think that people get depressed here, right? It's such an amazing country and all, but people do. And so so I think definitely they attack your mentality so that you would talk about these things on a daily basis, but you won't relate it back to Allah. You won't relate it back to Islam. And then, like I said, they attack the things that you watch, the things that you listen. So, like, indirectly, it will affect the things that you talk about, because you talk about things that you listen to. You talk about things that you watch, right? So in a way, overall, like, they attack your mentality, definitely, through these, like, TV and radios and music. So be careful of what you watch and what you listen to, because you might think that what you read, you might think that I know what Islam is and I know what Allah allows me to do. I'm just watching it. I'm not doing it, right? Like, it's different watching it and reading, but believe it or not, like, it affects your heart, and you will come to a point where you're desensitized by what they put on TV, that it's normal. Whatever. Like, it's normal for two characters to kiss one another. Now it's normal for, like, women, like lesbian and gays. Like, they have this series Glee. I don't know if you guys know. There's, like, so many. There's, like, transsexuals there. There's, like, gays and lesbians, and you might just watch it and then think, I know what Islam is, so I don't have to, like, worry about this. I'm not gonna suddenly become a lesbian after I watch Glee. But slowly but surely, they attack your heart. Same with the things that you listen to, the music. Slowly and surely, you would prefer that over listening to Quran, because when you're watching something or when you're listening to something that is against Islam, you're replacing it. You're using that time to do that instead of, listening to the Quran or reading something Islamic. So, yeah.
Does anyone else do we have time for another question, or
Do you want more question?
does anyone have a question?
I hope.
Abang Noor ada satu pandangan yang benda paling penting yang dia serang pada kita adalah keyakinan diri kita untuk jadi seorang Muslim. Dia serang keyakinan diri kita untuk berpakai cara orang Muslim, berfikir cara orang Muslim, dan bawa kita punya faith tu, kita punya pegangan tu. Dan kalau kita tengok, ini merupakan satu projek yang paling besar adalah menghapuskan keyakinan diri. Maksud dia, contoh dalam bentuk parenting, pembangunan anak-anak. Macam mana kita rasa tak confident kalau kata kita tak bawa anak kita pergi Halloween. Kita rasa macam orang celebrate benda tu dan kita tak celebrate, dan kita rasa macam inferior sangat. So macam mana kita nak bikin benda tu, kita nak lawan benda tu yang bawa kita confident dengan apa yang kita buat. Sebab dari segi fundamental dia pun, macam Halloween, Christmas, dia tak ada pun dalam religion Christian pun. Semua benda tu benda paganism, tapi diorang confident walaupun diorang tahu benda tu salah. Dan bagaimana kita tak yakin walaupun kita berada di pihak yang benar. Itu satu penyakit yang paling besar sekali. Dan yang kedua yang abang nak sentuh adalah soal macam mana persoalan sekularism yang berlaku dalam agama Kristian ni sedang dialami oleh agama Islam secara kanser tahap 4 dah.
Pluralism?
Secularism.
Secularism. Okay, sorry.
Sebab dalam konsep Islam, kita agama yang tidak menolak sekular. Kita tidak menolak dunia. Yang kita tolak sekularism tu sebagai satu faham hidup. Yang kita cuba tentang adalah proses sekularisasi. Sekularisasi itu proses. Sekularism tu faham. Sekular tu adalah keduniaan. So Islam tak halang kita untuk sekular, tapi yang dia halang adalah sekularism tu. Faham keduniaan yang melampau, yang terputus terus daripada agama. Macam mana Islam tak menghalang material, maksudnya bagaimana umat Islam untuk kejar dunia ni, tapi yang Islam halang adalah materialism, melihat kebenaran ni adalah segala-galanya, fundamental dalam hidup. Dan yang ketiga yang nak sentuh adalah soal orang selalu tanya kenapa dia susun 1 sampai 10 macam tu urutan dia, macam kenapa dia susun 1 sampai 20 macam tu urutan dia. Dia sebenarnya bukan soal numbering, dia sebenarnya yang nak dibina adalah dimensi benda tu atau sudut-sudut yang nak dibina. Maksudnya ada dimensi soal kefahaman, ada dimensi tentang ukhuwah, ada dimensi tentang siqah, ada dimensi tentang soal kefahaman, soal tajarur. So benda-benda tu sebagai satu dimensi yang bentuk globe tu atau sudut-sudut yang bentuk globe tu. So dia bukan terbentuk dalam soal numbering macam tu, walaupun dia adalah yang priority, tapi dia tak boleh bina satu dah cukup satu baru nombor 2, cukup nombor 2 baru nombor 3. Tak, dia patut dia jadi apa istilah dia, complementary, dia dimensi ataupun sudut-sudut yang dibina tu.
Oh, Jazakallah Banwar, for the insightful analysis. So, everyone else has
kadang nak just to link back from the first one of understanding, and then what we discussed from our tilawah and tafsir about contrast and comparison. Like when Allah says something and then He is also showing that He's above all this, He's above all this. And what we are seeing now, Muslims are desperately trying to explain Islam through logic to the non-Muslims. Like, this is the logic why we are not allowed. This is the logic why we are asked to cover ourselves. This is the logic. We are always seeking, we are always running back to logic. When Allah is above all this, when He asks us to do something or not do something, there's a higher reason that we possibly cannot explain in our lifetime. So we also have, like, I cannot agree more with what Abang Noah said, not just because he's my husband, but also because that it is right. Like, we are so unconfident with what we have. So we always have to have something else. Like, if you have heard Sheikh Saad Taslim, he said the females would want a Ryan Gosling but with a thawb. You see, like, we want exactly what the non-Muslims are having, but we give it the Islamic coating. So we are going to have our own Halloween, we are going to have our own Christmas, this kind of thinking. So we don't always have logical explanation for every single thing that Allah has asked or forbade us from. So we need to keep that in check. And when he said understanding to be the first thing, is because we need to be thinking in the right path. We need to be thinking in the right, like you mentioned, mentality. So if we don't have this Islamic mentality, these Muslim minds, we are going to have problems when we start putting things together. We start, okay, how do I explain this? Sometimes there's no explanation.
Yeah, and I also agree with the confidence. I remember last year when I was in the debate club, 99% of them are all atheists. Like, they're very, very proud of their atheism. And they would say all these horrible things about people who follow religion. It really does make me feel self-conscious. No, like, I feel so, like, not confident. Even when we're debating about something else not relating to God, just the fact that I had to go in front of all these people who think that I'm sort of dumb for following a religion. It really puts me down. Like, I think, yeah, I definitely agree with that. They attacked our confidence. So I'm not, instead of being confident with what I have and with what I understand, I become like self-conscious. Like, but they're very polite. Canadians are very polite, even though they don't agree with you and they think that you're dumb or regressive or backwards. They are still very polite to you. So that's a thing. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Yeah.
I just have a small point to make on what you were saying with logic. I think it's very important that you relate it this way because unfortunately I saw the problem myself. There's huge rising in Egyptian youth in going for atheism because they think that they're exactly that. They're smarter. They say that the Quran tells us لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ who think. So we think like extra than all of you. So we dismiss even the Quran. And it's not like that. We have to not only know that there are some things we can't explain, but they and sometimes in some moments we become slaves to our own thinking that that's right. So we think that this is logic, but it's not. It's a biased logic against. But the logic that Allah put in us, al-fitra, is to follow Him and to follow His rule. So they think we are slaves in a sense. Yes, we know we are slaves to Allah, but they tell us how can you become slaves and we're free. But they're slaves to their concept of freedom. And we are the ultimate free people because we are free to choose slavery to Allah and we choose it. But they just follow the concept.
Alright, so I'm going to give the floor to Afif.
I have something to say, but
Okay.
I might give it some topic. I just want to say you guys did a very good job.
Oh,
Yeah. I really appreciate every effort that you make for this. I just want to say that.
oh my god. Okay.
Say Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Allah Akbar. All the good came from Allah. And all the bad came from me.
Are we done? Okay. Thank you very much to Huda and Harith and Sarah for the presentations. So I hope that each of us can take a thing or two. I know it's difficult to force all the knowledge into us. So I recommend you take it slowly, as long as you remember it. And especially for me, I think it's the best thing to learn something is to learn from our mistakes. So every time if we make mistake, if we remember the right thing to do, and that's better. So I hope you guys don't forget about this thing. But I'm not really